Imagine coming back to the place you once called home, only to be haunted by the memories of the person who shattered your heart. You've built yourself up, moved on, or at least tried to. But deep down, you know you're not here for closure. You're here to make them feel the pain they caused you. What if this time, you had the chance to turn the tables? Would you choose love or revenge? Sophia had never imagined returning to this town again, especially not like this. The car ride through the familiar streets felt surreal, like a dream from another life. As the town's modest skyline came into view, she was greeted by the same small-town charm she had left behind years ago, except now it felt like a world she no longer belonged to. She had changed. And so had her purpose. Her fingers drummed against the steering wheel as she slowed down, glancing at the familiar storefronts, the coffee shop where she had spent countless afternoons, and the park where she used to walk with him. Her grip tightened involuntarily at the thought of Ethan, his smile, his touch, and the betrayal that had torn her apart. She shook her head. This wasn't about nostalgia. She was here for one reason only: revenge. Her car pulled into the driveway of the house she had grown up in. The old white picket fence still stood, albeit weathered by the years. The flowers her mother had planted were gone, replaced by a wild, overgrown garden. As Sophia stepped out of the car, a cool autumn breeze brushed her face, carrying with it the scent of pine and distant memories. She took a deep breath, steadying herself before walking up the steps and unlocking the door. The house had been left to her after her mother passed away. She hadn't visited since the funeral, unable to face the memories that lived within these walls. But now it felt like a base, a fortress from which she could plan her moves. She dropped her bags in the foyer, glancing around the place. It was as if time had stood still. The same old photographs hung on the walls, capturing a younger, carefree version of herself, a version of her that didn't know the pain of betrayal. "I'm not that girl anymore," she muttered under her breath as she moved into the living room. Her heels clicked on the hardwood floor, echoing in the silence. The house was empty, but she liked it that way. It gave her space to think, to plan. Sophia wasn't sure when the idea of revenge had fully taken root. Maybe it was the night she had cried herself to sleep, wondering how Ethan could have done what he did. Or maybe it was the months of anger and frustration that had followed. Either way, she was here now, and her plan was clear: to make Ethan feel the same pain he had caused her. It had been years since they'd last spoken. The breakup had been ugly, and she had left town soon after, swearing never to return. But now, she was back, stronger and more successful than ever. She had built a life for herself in the city, a career, new friends, and a reputation. But despite everything she had achieved, the wound Ethan had left behind never fully healed. Now, she intended to settle the score. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, jolting her from her thoughts. She glanced at the screen. "Lily, you're there, aren't you?" Lily's voice was soft but carried concern. "I'm here," Sophia replied, her voice steady. "Just arrived. And how does it feel?" Sophia paused, looking out the window at the town she once called home. "Strange. Familiar. But I'm not here to reminisce." "I know," Lily sighed. "Just be careful, okay? This kind of thing, it can backfire." "I'm not backing down, Lily. Ethan deserves this." There was a moment of silence on the other end before Lily spoke again. "All right. Just remember, sometimes revenge doesn't give you the closure you think it will." Sophia ended the call and slipped the phone back into her pocket. Lily didn't understand. No one did. This wasn't about closure, it was about justice. She moved to the window, staring out at the peaceful neighborhood, her heart hardening with resolve. Tomorrow, she would see Ethan. Tomorrow, the real game would begin. For now, she unpacked her things, each movement deliberate and calculated, as though she were setting the stage for the drama that was about to unfold. This town had no idea what was coming. But soon, Ethan would know the pain of being betrayed by someone you love. Soon, he would learn that some wounds don't heal, they only fester until they demand retribution. As the sun set and the house darkened around her, Sophia stood in front of the mirror. She gazed at her reflection, taking in the sharpness of her features, the confidence in her posture. The girl who had left town broken was gone. In her place stood a woman with a plan. She whispered to herself a vow. "Ethan, you'll regret what you did to me." Sophia stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the collar of her jacket, taking a deep breath. Today was the day. She hadn't seen Ethan in years, and now, after all this time, they would come face to face. Her stomach churned with a mix of nerves and anticipation, but she pushed those feelings aside. She wasn't here to feel, she was here to act. The morning sun cast a warm glow on the small town, but inside her, it felt cold. She stepped out of the house, locking the door behind her, and made her way to the cafe, the same cafe where they used to meet for coffee, back when everything seemed perfect. Now, the place would serve as the setting for her confrontation. She had done her research and knew that Ethan still frequented it every morning before work. As she walked, memories tried to resurface, but she pushed them down, keeping her mind on the task. Her heart raced, though she'd never admit it to anyone. The idea of seeing him again, of looking into the eyes that once made her feel like the center of his world, stirred something deep within her. But she wasn't here to rekindle old flames, she was here to extinguish them. The cafe came into view, small and quaint, just as she remembered. The bell above the door chimed as she entered, and immediately, her eyes scanned the room. There, in the corner, sat Ethan, his face buried in a newspaper, just like he always used to do. He hadn't changed much, his dark hair still had that casual, tousled look, and the same air of confidence surrounded him. A pang of emotion hit her, but she steeled herself. This wasn't about the past, it was about what she had come here to do. She walked toward the counter, ordering a coffee, her movements calm and collected, though her pulse raced. As she waited, she glanced in Ethan's direction again. He hadn't noticed her yet. That was about to change. Coffee in hand, she walked toward his table, her footsteps deliberate. The moment she stood in front of him, he looked up, and for a brief second, his face registered shock. Then, something else, confusion, maybe even guilt. "Sophia?" His voice was low, uncertain, as if he couldn't believe she was standing there. She gave him a tight smile. "Long time, no see." Ethan blinked, setting down his newspaper. "Yeah, wow, I didn't expect." "To see me?" She finished his sentence with a hint of sarcasm. He nodded, awkwardly clearing his throat. "I thought you'd moved on, left for good." Sophia's heart clenched at his words. Oh, how she wished she could have moved on completely. But here she was. Things change. Ethan gestured to the chair across from him, clearly uncomfortable with this sudden encounter. "Do you want to sit?" Sophia hesitated for a moment before deciding to take the seat. She had to play this carefully. She couldn't let him see the anger, the hurt simmering beneath the surface. Not yet. Instead, she put on a facade of cool indifference, leaning back in her chair, her eyes never leaving his. "So," she began, stirring her coffee absent-mindedly, "how's life?" He shifted in his seat, clearly unsure how to navigate this conversation. "Good, I guess. Still working at the firm, still living in the same house. The same house where they'd once planned a future together." Sophia bit back the bitterness rising in her throat. "Sounds like not much has changed." Ethan gave her a half-hearted smile. "You could say that." There was a moment of silence between them, thick with unspoken words. Sophia could feel the weight of everything she wanted to say pressing against her chest, but she wasn't going to give in. Not yet. Instead, she leaned forward slightly, her eyes narrowing just a fraction. "I'm surprised you didn't think I'd come back." Ethan's gaze flickered, and for the first time, she saw the tension in his posture. He wasn't as relaxed as he wanted her to believe. "I didn't think you'd want to. After everything." Sophia let out a soft, humorless laugh. "After everything, Ethan? You mean after you lied to me, betrayed me, and broke my heart?" Her words were sharp, cutting through the air like a blade. Ethan flinched slightly, but he didn't look away. "Sophia, She held up her hand, silencing him. I'm not here to rehash the past. I'm here because I've moved on. I've built a life for myself. A good one. But I thought it'd be interesting to see how you're doing after all this time. Ethan seemed to search her face for something, perhaps forgiveness, perhaps understanding. But Sophia gave him nothing. She wasn't here for closure. She was here to remind him of the pain he had caused, to plant the seeds of doubt and guilt in his mind. I'm glad you're doing well, Ethan finally said, though there was something hollow in his voice. Sophia smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I am. She stood, leaving her half-finished coffee on the table. It was nice catching up, Ethan. Maybe I'll see you around. Without waiting for his response, she turned and walked out of the cafe, her heart pounding in her chest. She had seen the flicker of guilt in his eyes, the hesitation in his voice. Her plan was working. As she stepped outside into the crisp autumn air, a small, satisfied smile crept onto her lips. This was just the beginning. Sophia's heart raced as she left the cafe, her mind spinning with thoughts of Ethan's face, his confusion, his guilt. The encounter had gone exactly as she hoped. She had left him unsettled, unsure of her intentions, and that was exactly what she wanted. But this was only the first step. Now, it was time to set the rest of her plan in motion. Back at her childhood home, she sat at the kitchen table, her laptop open in front of her. She had spent weeks researching Ethan's life after she left, and it was time to use everything she had learned. His professional life, his personal life, she had mapped it all out. She knew the people in his world, the places he frequented, and most importantly, his weaknesses. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment before she typed in the name of a local law firm, the firm where Ethan worked. She had considered many ways to get to him, but the professional angle had seemed the most effective. Ethan's career was everything to him. He was driven, ambitious, and had always prided himself on being the best at what he did. That was where she would strike. She clicked through the website, quickly finding the name she had been looking for, Derek Palmer. Ethan's boss. He was an influential partner at the firm, and from what Sophia had gathered, Ethan was angling for a promotion. If there was anyone who could put pressure on Ethan, it was Derek. But how to approach him without raising suspicion? That was the real challenge. Sophia's gaze shifted to the phone lying on the table beside her. She picked it up and dialed Lily's number. It rang twice before her friend answered. Sophia? Lily's voice was filled with curiosity. I need a favor, Sophia said, skipping the pleasantries. Lily sighed on the other end. This sounds dangerous already. It's not dangerous, Sophia assured her. I just need you to introduce me to someone. Derek Palmer at the firm where Ethan works. There was a pause before Lily responded. Why do you need to meet him? Sophia hesitated, knowing Lily wouldn't understand the full scope of her plan. Let's just say, it'll help me with Ethan. Another sigh. I don't like this, Sophia. You're playing with fire. I know what I'm doing, Sophia said, her voice firm. Trust me. Can you help? Lily was quiet for a moment before reluctantly agreeing. I'll see what I can do. But please, be careful. I will, Sophia promised, though she had no intention of being careful. This was all about risk, about pushing boundaries, about making Ethan feel the same sense of powerlessness that she had felt when he broke her heart. After ending the call, Sophia sat back in her chair, staring at the ceiling. She could already picture it, meeting Derek, planting doubts about Ethan, subtly undermining him at every turn. Ethan might have thought he was untouchable in his professional world, but that was about to change. But as much as the idea of revenge thrilled her, there was a nagging voice at the back of her mind. Lily's warning echoed in her ears. Was she going too far? Would this backfire, as her friend had suggested? No. She had come too far to second-guess herself now. She was in control, and Ethan deserved to feel everything she had gone through. This wasn't just about getting back at him. It was about justice. About making him face the consequences of his actions. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. Startled, Sophia glanced at the clock. It was late, and she wasn't expecting anyone. Cautiously, she made her way to the front door, peeking through the window before opening it. To her surprise, it wasn't a stranger. It was Ryan, her high school friend, and more importantly, Ethan's childhood best friend. His face lit up when he saw her. "Sophia," he exclaimed, stepping forward to pull her into a friendly hug. She stiffened slightly but quickly masked her discomfort. "Ryan. Wow. It's been a while." He grinned, stepping back to give her a once-over. "You look great. I heard you were back in town and I couldn't believe it. Thought I'd stop by to say hello." Sophia smiled, though her mind was already racing. Ryan had always been close to Ethan. If anyone knew what was going on in Ethan's personal life, it would be him. This could be another opportunity. "I've been meaning to catch up with everyone," she said, gesturing for him to come inside. "How's everything going?" They moved to the living room, and Ryan launched into stories about his life, how he had stayed in town, married his high school sweetheart, and now had 2 kids. Sophia listened politely, but her mind was elsewhere, searching for a way to steer the conversation toward Ethan. Finally, after some small talk, she casually brought him up. "How's Ethan been?" "I actually ran into him earlier today." Ryan's expression shifted slightly, but he recovered quickly. Ethan. Same old. He's doing great at the firm, really killing it." Sophia raised an eyebrow, feigning interest. "That's good to hear. I figured he'd be doing well." "Is he still with, what was her name?" Ryan hesitated, glancing down at his hands. "Actually, no. They broke up a while back. Things got complicated." Sophia leaned forward, curiosity piqued. "Complicated how?" Ryan shrugged. "It's not really my place to say, but let's just say Ethan's personal life isn't as perfect as it might seem." Sophia's heart skipped a beat. This was exactly what she needed, an opening. Ethan's life wasn't perfect, and now she had something to work with. Ryan didn't stay long after that, but as soon as he left, Sophia's mind raced with possibilities. Ethan wasn't as untouchable as he seemed. And now, with both Derek and Ryan in the picture, she had multiple angles to attack from. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. The next morning, Sophia woke with a sense of purpose. Today was the day she would meet Derek Palmer. Thanks to Lily's connections, the meeting had been arranged at a charity gala that evening. It was the perfect setting, formal, professional, and with enough social cover to make their conversation seem casual. She stood in front of the mirror, meticulously applying her makeup. Her hands moved with practiced precision, but her mind was elsewhere, focused on how the night would unfold. The plan had to be flawless. She wasn't just meeting Derek to introduce herself, she was going to plant a seed. A seed of doubt about Ethan. As she slid into her dress, a sleek, black number that exuded both elegance and confidence, she reminded herself of her goal. This wasn't about hurting Ethan for the sake of it. It was about showing him that actions had consequences, even years later. He had shattered her once, and now it was his turn to feel the cracks in his perfect life. The gala was held at an upscale hotel downtown, with crystal chandeliers and classical music filling the space. Waiters moved gracefully between guests, offering champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Sophia arrived fashionably late, allowing her entrance to be noticed without seeming too intentional. Lily was already there, waiting near the bar. She waved as soon as she spotted Sophia, her eyes widening in appreciation. "You look stunning. You're going to knock him dead." Sophia smiled, but there was a hint of nerves under her cool exterior. "Let's hope so." Lily gestured toward a group of men across the room. "That's Derek, the one in the gray suit, talking to the older gentleman. I'll introduce you when he's free." Sophia followed Lily's gaze and saw him immediately. Derek Palmer was tall, with graying hair and a commanding presence. He looked exactly like the type of man who would take no nonsense from anyone, a man who valued control. Good, she thought. He'll like what I have to offer. They waited a few moments until Derek finished his conversation, then Lily made her move. She led Sophia over, a bright smile on her face as she approached. "Derek, this is my friend Sophia. She just moved back to town and has been wanting to reconnect with some old faces." Derek turned, his sharp eyes appraising Sophia for a split second before offering his hand. "Sophia, nice to meet you." Sophia smiled, shaking his hand firmly. Likewise. I've heard a lot about your work at the firm. It's impressive. Derek chuckled, clearly pleased with the compliment. We've been doing well. And what about you? What line of work are you in? Sophia maintained her poised demeanor. I've been in marketing, but I'm taking some time to explore new opportunities. I've been thinking of shifting into consulting, actually. Helping businesses refine their messaging, improve their branding. Derek's interest was piqued. Consulting, huh? That's an interesting field. There's always room for improvement in that area. Sophia nodded, taking a sip of her champagne. Exactly. It's all about making sure your clients see you the way you want to be seen. Wouldn't you agree? Derek smiled knowingly. Absolutely. Image is everything in business. She leaned in slightly, lowering her voice as if sharing a secret. That's why I'm curious about Ethan. I've heard so much about his success at the firm, but from what I gather, he's not as polished as he used to be. I mean, I knew him years ago, and he was brilliant, but it seems like, well, something's changed. Derek raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. Changed? What do you mean? Sophia shrugged lightly, careful not to seem too invested. Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's just small-town gossip. I've heard some things, personal stuff, mostly. That makes me wonder if it's affecting his performance. You know how those things go. Derek didn't reply right away, but she could see the gears turning in his mind. His expression shifted slightly, and she knew she had his attention. He wasn't the type of man to let anything slide when it came to his firm's reputation. Interesting, he finally said, his voice thoughtful. I haven't noticed anything concerning, but I'll keep an eye on it. Sophia smiled, playing it cool. Oh, I'm sure it's nothing. I just thought it was worth mentioning. I'm sure Ethan will rise above it like he always does. Derek gave her a sharp look, and for a moment, Sophia wondered if she had pushed too hard. But then he smiled, nodding in agreement. I appreciate you bringing it up. It's always good to be aware of what's happening behind the scenes. They chatted for a few more minutes, Sophia expertly steering the conversation away from Ethan and into more neutral territory. By the time she excused herself, she knew she had left the right impression. Derek would be watching Ethan more closely now, and all it would take was a small misstep for him to start questioning Ethan's loyalty or capability. As Sophia made her way through the crowd, she couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. It wasn't just about getting Ethan back for what he had done to her, it was about showing him that he wasn't untouchable. She was no longer the vulnerable, heartbroken girl he had left behind. She was in control now. But as she left the gala and stepped out into the cool night air, a strange feeling crept over her. She had set the plan in motion, but was it enough? Would undermining Ethan's career really give her the closure she wanted? Or was there something deeper she still needed to confront? For now, it didn't matter. The plan was working, and soon enough, Ethan would feel the pressure. He would know that his perfect little world wasn't as solid as he thought. With that thought in mind, Sophia walked toward her car, her heels clicking against the pavement. The game was far from over. The following days unfolded with a quiet intensity. Sophia remained focused, checking off the steps of her plan one by one, but there was a growing weight inside her, an unshakable sense that something was missing. She had gotten Derek to start questioning Ethan, subtly planting doubt about his reliability, and yet it didn't feel like enough. Sophia spent her mornings working remotely from her laptop, combing through emails, news, and anything else she could find that would give her leverage. The afternoons were quieter, often spent alone in her childhood home, memories of the past creeping back into her thoughts. She found herself wandering through the house, running her fingers along old furniture, photographs, relics of a simpler time when she and Ethan were just two kids, naive to the harsh realities of love. One evening, as she sat on the worn couch in the living room, a box caught her eye. It was tucked in a corner under a pile of old blankets, nearly forgotten. Curiosity piqued, she pulled it out, dusting off the top. It was one of those boxes her mother had kept, a collection of old photos, school awards, and small mementos from her teenage years. She hesitated for a moment before opening it, and as the lid came off, A flood of memories washed over her. There were photographs of her and Ethan, their smiles wide and carefree. A prom picture where they stood arm in arm, Ethan looking at her as though she was the only girl in the world. She ran her fingers over the photograph, a lump forming in her throat. For a long moment, she sat there, staring at the images of their past. This was what she had wanted to forget, the good times. The moments when it seemed like nothing could come between them. But the photographs only made the pain sharper, a reminder of what had been ripped away when Ethan betrayed her. Underneath the photos was something she hadn't expected to find. It was a folded-up piece of notebook paper, yellowed with age, tucked in between old high school yearbooks. Sophia frowned as she pulled it out, unfolding it carefully. Her breath caught as she recognized the handwriting, Ethan's. It was a letter. A letter from years ago, one that she had never seen before. Dear Sophia, I don't know if you'll ever read this, but I need to write it. I need to tell you everything because I can't keep holding it in anymore. I know I've been distant lately, and I'm sorry for that. It's not because I don't care, it's because I care too much. There's something I've been keeping from you. Something I don't know how to say, but I have to try. I've made mistakes, Sophia. Big ones. And I'm scared that if you knew the truth, you wouldn't want to be with me anymore. But you deserve the truth, even if it means losing you. The truth is, I hurt you without you even knowing it. I didn't mean for it to happen, but it did. And I've been living with that guilt every single day. You deserve so much better than what I've given you, and I don't know how to make it right. I don't even know if I can. But I love you, Sophia. I love you more than I've ever loved anyone, and I can't stand the thought of losing you. I just hope that somehow you'll forgive me, even if I don't deserve it. Ethan. Sophia's hands trembled as she read the letter, her mind reeling. What was this? When had he written it, and why had she never seen it? She tried to remember, to place this letter in the context of their relationship, but nothing came to mind. It was as though this letter had come from a different Ethan, one she hadn't known. A surge of anger rose inside her. Was this supposed to be some kind of apology? Was this his way of easing his guilt? The guilt that he had never bothered to express to her face? He had written this letter and then never sent it, leaving her to pick up the pieces of her life without ever knowing the full truth. But as her anger simmered, a new feeling surfaced, uncertainty. What had Ethan done? What mistake was he talking about? And why had he hidden it from her all those years? Sophia stood up abruptly, the letter still clutched in her hand. She couldn't let this go. She couldn't keep playing games, orchestrating this elaborate plan of revenge, without knowing what had really happened between them. This letter changed everything. It hinted at a deeper truth, something that had been left unresolved all these years. Suddenly, her plan to sabotage Ethan's career felt hollow. The revenge she had been chasing was no longer enough. She needed answers. She needed to confront Ethan, not just as a pawn in her game, but as the man who had once held her heart. Sophia stuffed the letter back into the box, her mind already racing. She couldn't do this alone. She needed to know more, to dig deeper into their past. And there was only one person who might have the answers she needed: Ryan. Ryan had been Ethan's best friend. He had known him better than anyone, even better than her at times. If anyone knew what Ethan had been hiding, it would be him. Without hesitating, she grabbed her phone and dialed Ryan's number. It rang for what felt like an eternity before he finally picked up. "Sophia?" he answered, sounding surprised to hear from her. "I need to see you," she said, her voice urgent. "It's about Ethan." There was a pause on the other end before Ryan sighed. "I had a feeling you'd call about him eventually. Meet me at the park in an hour." Sophia agreed, hanging up quickly. She paced the living room, her heart pounding. This was it. She was about to pull back the curtain on the past, and she had no idea what she would find. But one thing was certain. This was no longer just about revenge. It was about the truth. And Sophia wasn't leaving until she had it. The park was serene, the sun filtering through the leaves as Sophia approached the small bench where Ryan was waiting. He looked up as she neared, a mixture of concern and curiosity etched across his face. "Hey," he greeted, standing up to give her a quick hug. "What's going on? You sounded serious on the phone." Sophia took a seat beside him, her hands fidgeting in her lap. I found something, a letter from Ethan. He wrote it years ago, but he never sent it. It made me realize there's so much more I don't know about him. I need to understand what happened between us. Ryan's expression shifted, the hint of a frown forming. You found a letter? What did it say? Sophia took a deep breath, deciding to lay it all bare. He talked about mistakes he made, things he didn't tell me. He sounded regretful, like he was hiding something huge. I need you to tell me everything you know about Ethan during that time. What was he going through? Ryan hesitated, glancing around as if searching for the right words. It's complicated, Sophia. Ethan was dealing with a lot back then. I don't know if he meant to hurt you, but he got involved in some things that, well, they changed him. What kind of things? She pressed, urgency rising in her voice. I need you to be honest with me. Did he cheat on me? Was that it? Ryan looked troubled. No, it wasn't cheating. But there was a situation with some friends of ours, people who had a bad influence. He got pulled into their world. I tried to pull him back, but he was too stubborn. It affected his decisions, and he ended up distancing himself from you and everyone else who cared. Sophia's heart sank. What do you mean? How bad was it? Ryan leaned closer, his voice lowering. There were rumors. Some stuff he got mixed up in that made him look bad, and he didn't know how to handle it. I think he thought pushing you away would protect you from the fallout. Sophia shook her head, frustration bubbling up. So he thought breaking my heart was better than being honest? Why didn't he ever just tell me? Because he was ashamed, Ryan replied, his gaze steady. He thought if you knew, you'd never want to be with him again. It was easier for him to walk away than to face what he had done. The weight of his words hit her like a punch to the gut. Ethan had chosen to suffer in silence rather than face her. It made her angry, but it also stirred a deep ache within her. So what now? I've been plotting revenge, but if there were real reasons behind his actions. Revenge won't bring you peace, Ryan said softly. If you want closure, you need to talk to him. Find out what he's been carrying all this time. Sophia sighed, running a hand through her hair. I just don't know if I can. I've been so focused on hurting him for what he did to me, but now I feel like I'm the one who doesn't know the full story. Why don't you invite him to meet? Ryan suggested. You can confront him directly. Ask him about the letter, about everything. But you need to be ready for whatever he says. Sophia nodded, steeling herself. It was time to confront the past, to tear down the walls that had been built between them. You're right. I can't keep hiding from this. I need to know if there's still a chance for us to find closure, or if it's time to move on. As they sat together in the park, the weight of her decision settled heavily on her shoulders. She had spent so long plotting revenge, but now she realized that true strength lay in confronting the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Thank you, Ryan, she said, her voice earnest. I appreciate your honesty. It means a lot. Just be careful, okay? He warned. Ethan has been through a lot, and he might not react the way you expect. Sophia nodded, determination sparking in her eyes. I will. I just need to know. They exchanged a few more words before she stood up, feeling lighter yet burdened by the task ahead. She walked back to her car, her mind racing with thoughts of what she might say to Ethan. That evening, she sent him a text, a simple invitation to meet at the cafe where they used to spend time together. Her heart raced as she pressed send, a mixture of fear and anticipation swirling inside her. It didn't take long for his reply to come in. Ethan, I'd love to. What time? Sophia's hands shook slightly as she typed back. How about 6 p.m.? Ethan, see you then. With the exchange complete, a whirlwind of emotions flooded her. She had taken the first step toward uncovering the truth, but now she had to prepare herself for whatever lay ahead. As the hours passed, she replayed memories in her mind, questioning everything she thought she knew about their relationship. Would Ethan be the same person she remembered? Would he be open and honest, or defensive and closed off? When the clock struck 6, she found herself standing outside the cafe, nerves churning in her stomach. She took a deep breath, reminding herself of her purpose. No matter what happened, she would face him and seek the truth. As she walked inside, her heart raced. This was the moment where everything could change. The cafe was buzzing with life as Sophia entered, the aroma of coffee and pastries wrapping around her like a familiar embrace. She scanned the room, her heart thudding in her chest as she spotted Ethan sitting at a corner table, his back to her. He looked older, the lines on his face telling stories of stress and challenges she hadn't been privy to. Taking a steadying breath, she approached, each step feeling like a weight. As he turned to greet her, their eyes met, and for a fleeting moment, the world around them faded. It was just the two of them, suspended in a time that felt both new and achingly familiar. "Hey," Ethan said, a small smile breaking through his initial surprise. "You look great." "Thanks," she replied, her voice softer than she intended. "You too." They both sat down, an awkward silence settling between them. Sophia fidgeted with her coffee cup, gathering her thoughts. She had rehearsed so many lines in her head, but now that they were face to face, the words felt heavy and tangled. "I was surprised when you texted," Ethan finally said, breaking the silence. "I didn't expect to hear from you after, well, everything." Sophia nodded, the weight of their shared history pressing down on her. "Yeah, it's been a long time. I guess I wanted to talk about some things. Things we never addressed." Ethan's expression shifted slightly, his brows furrowing as he leaned forward. "I'd like that. I've thought about reaching out, but I never knew how to start." His admission caught her off guard. "Really? You wanted to talk?" "Of course. I've had a lot of regrets, Sophia." He paused, the vulnerability in his voice almost palpable. "But I was afraid you'd never want to see me again." Sophia took a deep breath, deciding it was time to lay everything on the table. "I found a letter you wrote years ago. You never sent it." Ethan's eyes widened, and he looked genuinely startled. "A letter? What did it say?" She leaned in closer, the cafe noise fading into the background. "It was about mistakes you made, and how you thought you were protecting me by pushing me away. It sounded like you were carrying a lot of guilt." "What happened, Ethan? What were you hiding?" He looked away for a moment, visibly shaken. I didn't want to hurt you. There were things going on that I thought would drag you down with me. I didn't think I could ever explain." Sophia's heart raced. "But you had to know how much it hurt me when you just disappeared. I was left with nothing but questions." "I know. I should have told you everything," he admitted, his voice cracking. "There were friends I got involved with who had a bad reputation. I thought if I distanced myself from you, you'd be safe. I never meant to hurt you, but I felt trapped and ashamed." "Trapped?" "You were the one who chose to leave," she pressed, emotion rising. "You chose silence over honesty." Ethan looked up, anguish etched on his face. "I thought it would be better for you. But I see now how selfish that was. I've regretted it every day." His honesty struck a chord within her, opening the floodgates to emotions she had buried for years. "You didn't even give me a chance to understand. You just left, and I was left to pick up the pieces. Did you ever think about how I felt?" "I thought about it constantly," he replied, his voice earnest. "But I didn't know how to reach out. I was ashamed of what I had gotten into, and I thought I was protecting you by staying away. I was wrong." Sophia felt her resolve wavering, the anger she had held onto for so long starting to dissipate. "So, you wrote me a letter but never sent it. You carried that guilt without ever giving me the chance to understand." "I thought about sending it a million times," Ethan admitted. "But every time I tried, I couldn't find the words to explain what had happened. I was terrified of losing you completely." For a moment, silence enveloped them again, heavy with unspoken words. Sophia took a deep breath, her emotions swirling. "I need to know if you're the same person I fell in love with. If you've changed." Ethan's gaze bore into hers, intense and sincere. "I am different. I've had to face my past, the choices I made. I've tried to make amends and learn from my mistakes. But I know that doesn't excuse what I did to you." She searched his eyes, looking for any hint of the boy she once knew. "Do you still care about me?" The question hung in the air, charged with possibility. Ethan leaned forward, his voice steady. "More than anything. I've thought about you every day since I left. I've always wanted to make things right between us, even if I didn't know how. The vulnerability in his words ignited a spark of hope within her, but doubts lingered. If I decide to forgive you, can you promise me you'll be honest from now on? No more secrets. I promise, he said, his voice firm. I want to start fresh. But I know it won't be easy, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to prove it to you. Sophia's heart raced, her mind wrestling with the emotions crashing over her. The betrayal, the hurt, the longing, it all twisted together, creating a tumult of feelings she hadn't anticipated. With a sigh, she leaned back, considering what lay ahead. This was the crossroads she had feared, one path leading to revenge and resentment, the other to understanding and healing. Maybe we can start with being honest, she said softly. But it's going to take time for me to trust you again. Ethan nodded, relief washing over his face. I'll wait as long as it takes. Just having this chance means everything to me. As they sat in the cafe, the atmosphere shifted, filled with the potential for a new beginning. Sophia realized that perhaps the past didn't have to define their future. Maybe, just maybe, there was a way to rebuild what had been lost. The weeks that followed the cafe meeting felt like a delicate dance. Sophia and Ethan gradually began to navigate the complex terrain of their renewed connection. Their conversations, once fraught with tension and unspoken words, became more open and sincere. Each encounter was a step toward healing, a cautious exploration of what could be salvaged from the wreckage of their past. One evening, they decided to take a walk along the riverfront, the sun setting behind them, casting a golden glow on the water. The atmosphere felt lighter, filled with laughter and shared memories. Sophia was beginning to see glimpses of the boy she once loved, the one who had made her laugh and filled her days with joy. I can't believe we used to come here all the time, Ethan said, glancing at the familiar path they walked. It feels surreal to be back together like this. Sophia smiled, recalling carefree days spent under the sun. Yeah, we had some good times. I remember that summer when we thought we could ride our bikes all the way to the beach. Ethan chuckled, his eyes sparkling with nostalgia. And we got lost for hours. I thought we were going to starve to death. They both laughed, the sound echoing in the quiet of the evening. But beneath the laughter, Sophia felt a mixture of hope and apprehension. As much as she wanted to embrace this newfound connection, the scars from their past were still fresh. Do you remember the promise we made? She asked, her tone shifting slightly. To always be honest with each other, no matter what? Ethan's expression turned serious. I do. And I want to keep that promise this time. There's so much I still want to explain, so many things I didn't tell you before. Sophia nodded, appreciating his sincerity. Then tell me. I want to understand everything. What really happened with your friends? How did you end up in that situation? Ethan took a deep breath, steeling himself to share. I got mixed up with the wrong crowd after you, and I broke up. I was trying to drown out the guilt I felt for leaving you behind. I thought if I distanced myself, I wouldn't have to deal with the pain. What kind of crowd? She pressed, her heart racing at the thought of the darkness he had faced. They were into drugs and partying. At first, I thought it was harmless fun, but it quickly spiraled out of control. I didn't realize how deep I was until I hit rock bottom. That's when I knew I had to pull myself together. Sophia listened intently, feeling a swirl of emotions. Did you ever think about coming back to me? To tell me the truth? I did, every day, Ethan admitted, his voice raw with emotion. But I was so ashamed. I thought you'd hate me for what I'd become. I felt like I didn't deserve your love anymore. Sophia's heart ached at his honesty. Ethan, I would have wanted to help you. I never stopped caring about you, even when I was angry. I know that now, he said, looking deeply into her eyes. And I wish I had realized it sooner. I let my fear destroy us, and I've regretted it every day since. They stopped walking, the weight of his confession hanging in the air. Sophia felt tears prick at her eyes, a mix of sadness and relief. It's hard to hear this, but I appreciate you telling me. I need to know that you've changed. I promise I have, Ethan said earnestly. I've been working on myself, going to therapy, trying to make amends for my past mistakes. I'm not that person anymore. Sophia studied him, searching for any sign of insincerity. But all she saw was vulnerability, a man trying to reclaim the pieces of his life. It's going to take time for me to fully trust you again, but I'm willing to try. Thank you, he said, his voice filled with gratitude. I'll do everything I can to prove to you that I'm worth it. As they continued their walk, Sophia felt a shift within her. The anger and resentment that had once consumed her were gradually giving way to a cautious hope. She realized that perhaps their love story wasn't finished yet. It was merely transforming into something new. As they reached a quiet spot by the river, Ethan took her hand gently. "Can I show you something?" he asked, a hint of excitement in his voice. Curiosity sparked within her as she nodded. He led her to a small clearing where the water sparkled under the moonlight. There, he pulled out a small canvas he had hidden behind his back, a painting he had created. "I started painting after everything happened," he said, a shy smile gracing his lips. "It became my way of expressing the emotions I couldn't put into words. This one is for you." Sophia gasped as she took in the image. It was a beautiful depiction of the two of them, surrounded by the lush scenery of their favorite places. She could see the warmth in their smiles, the connection that had once existed. "It's stunning," she breathed, her heart swelling. "You captured everything. I wanted you to see that despite the darkness, there was still light." "I hope we can find that light again," he said, hope shining in his eyes. Sophia squeezed his hand, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. "I want that too. It won't be easy, but I believe we can try." As they stood together, the moon casting a soft glow around them, Sophia felt a flicker of warmth ignite in her heart. She was ready to face whatever lay ahead, hand in hand with Ethan, determined to rebuild what they had lost. The following week brought a surge of emotions for Sophia as she and Ethan continued to explore their renewed connection. However, lingering doubts often crept in, especially when she thought about the friends Ethan had mentioned, the ones who had influenced him so negatively. One evening, as they walked through the bustling streets of their college town, Sophia gathered the courage to address her concerns. "Ethan, I've been thinking a lot about your friends, the ones you got involved with. Do you still see them?" Ethan's expression darkened slightly, a shadow passing over his features. "Not really. After everything that happened, I distanced myself from them completely. I had to choose between them and my own life." Sophia stopped walking, her heart racing. "But what if they come back into your life? What if they try to pull you back in?" "I won't let them," he replied firmly. "I've worked too hard to move on. I've learned my lesson, and I don't want to go back to that dark place. I'm serious about being better for myself and for you." She nodded, appreciating his determination, but feeling an undercurrent of fear. "It's just, I worry. I don't want to see you get hurt again. You mean too much to me. I promise I'll keep you in the loop. If anything happens, I'll tell you." "I won't let my past dictate our future," he assured her, sincerity in his voice. They continued walking, the streets alive with laughter and music. But just as they passed a popular bar, Sophia spotted a familiar face from Ethan's past. It was Tyler, one of the friends who had influenced him during his turbulent times. He was laughing and holding court with a group of people, and Sophia felt a knot tighten in her stomach. "Ethan, is that?" she began, her voice trailing off. Ethan turned to follow her gaze, his expression shifting as recognition hit him. "Yeah, that's Tyler." "Should we say hi?" she asked, uncertainty lacing her words. "I think it's best if we don't," he said, the tension palpable. "I haven't spoken to him since I decided to cut ties. I don't want to go back there." Sophia felt torn. On one hand, she wanted to support Ethan. On the other, she felt compelled to confront the ghosts of their past. "What if he tries to reach out to you?" "I'll handle it," Ethan said, determination flashing in his eyes. "I'm not the same guy I was before. I won't be swayed by them." As they turned to leave, Tyler's voice suddenly rang out, calling Ethan's name. "Hey, Ethan. Is that you?" Sophia's heart raced as Ethan hesitated, looking at her for guidance. She took a deep breath, her instincts urging her to stay calm. "It's okay. Just be honest." Ethan squared his shoulders and walked toward Tyler, Sophia trailing slightly behind. "What do you want, Tyler?" he asked, his tone steely. "Wow, look who decided to show up," Tyler replied, a smirk on his face. "Thought you'd fallen off the map. Heard you were playing it safe these days. Didn't think you'd be with her." His gaze shifted to Sophia, a condescending look crossing his face. Sophia felt a wave of anger rise within her, but she held her ground. "We're happy together, Tyler. You don't have to try to drag him back into your world." Tyler chuckled, crossing his arms. "Happy, huh? I'm just saying, don't be surprised if he misses the thrill of real life. It's not all coffee shops and walks by the river, you know." Ethan stepped closer, a protective instinct kicking in. "I'm not interested in that life anymore. I've moved on, and I'm not looking back. You're the last person I want to associate with." Tyler's expression shifted, annoyance brewing. "You think you're better than us now? Just because you've cleaned up your act? You don't get to just walk away and pretend none of this happened." Sophia sensed the tension mounting and intervened, her voice steady. "Ethan has every right to choose his path. You can't hold his past over him, Tyler. That's not fair." Tyler scoffed, clearly annoyed by her presence. "You don't know the real Ethan. He's just hiding behind you to avoid facing his past. Sooner or later, it will catch up to him." "Enough," Ethan said, his voice low but firm. "I'm not afraid of my past. I've dealt with it, and I'm not going to let you undermine my progress." With that, Ethan turned to Sophia, his gaze softening. "Let's go." As they walked away, Sophia felt a mix of relief and anger bubbling inside her. "You handled that really well," she said, glancing up at him. "Thanks. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of knowing he got to me," Ethan replied, his expression serious. "I meant what I said. I'm committed to moving forward." But as they continued their walk, the encounter lingered in the back of her mind. Tyler's words echoed, a reminder that the past could still cast a long shadow over their present. Later that evening, as they sat together on a park bench overlooking the river, Sophia couldn't shake her worries. What if Tyler tries to reach out again? What if he drags you back in? Ethan took her hand, squeezing it gently. "I'll handle it. You have to trust me. I know how to set boundaries now. I won't let anyone pull me away from what we're building." "I want to believe that," Sophia admitted, her voice laced with concern. "But I need to know you're truly ready to let go of that past." "I am," he promised, his eyes locking onto hers with conviction. "I don't want to lose you again. You're everything to me." As they gazed at the water, the moonlight dancing on its surface, Sophia felt a flicker of hope amid her fears. Maybe this time, they could navigate the darkness together, hand in hand. The air was thick with anticipation as the days turned into weeks. Sophia and Ethan's connection deepened, each moment shared stitching together the fabric of their renewed relationship. But the specter of Ethan's past lingered like a shadow, always present, always threatening. One afternoon, Sophia received a text that made her heart sink. It was from Tyler, reaching out to Ethan again. "Hey man, let's catch up. Heard you've been keeping a low profile. We miss you. Come hang out." Her stomach twisted with anxiety. She immediately forwarded the message to Ethan, her fingers trembling as she hit send. Moments later, his reply came through, a sense of urgency in his words. "I'll handle it. Don't worry." But worry was all she could do. A knot formed in her chest, and she couldn't shake the feeling of dread. That night, she couldn't sleep, thoughts spiraling about what could happen if Ethan fell back into old habits. The following day, they planned to meet at their favorite cafe, but as she arrived, Sophia could see Ethan was already there, deep in conversation with Tyler. Her heart raced as she hesitated at the door, torn between wanting to intervene and trusting Ethan to stand his ground. Gathering her courage, she stepped inside, her resolve firm. As she approached their table, she noticed Tyler's casual demeanor, the way he laughed as if nothing had ever happened between them. It made her stomach churn. "Hey, guys," Sophia greeted, forcing a smile as she slid into the chair opposite Ethan. "What's going on?" "Just catching up," Tyler said, a hint of mockery in his tone. I was just telling Ethan how great it would be to have him back in the fold. We're planning some fun nights, old-time sake. Ethan's expression tightened, and Sophia could see the conflict in his eyes. I appreciate the offer, Tyler, but I'm not interested, he said firmly. Come on, it'll be just like old times. You can't tell me you've enjoyed being all responsible, Tyler replied, his smirk widening. Life is too short to play it safe. Sophia felt a surge of anger rise within her. Ethan has worked hard to turn his life around. He doesn't need to revisit a toxic past to find enjoyment. Wow, look at you. Stepping in to defend him, Tyler shot back, his tone condescending. What's next? Playing the role of his guardian, Ethan looked between them, his expression shifting from discomfort to determination. Sophia is right. I've made my choices, and I'm happy with where I am. I don't want to go back to that life, no matter how tempting it might sound. Tyler leaned back, clearly annoyed. So you'd rather hang out with this girl than your real friends? That's weak, man. You're better than that. Sophia felt the tension in the air crackle as Ethan's jaw clenched. It's not weakness. It's strength to walk away from things that don't serve me anymore. Maybe you're just scared. Tyler shot back, the provocation palpable. But instead of backing down, Ethan leaned forward, his voice steady. Scared? No. I'm choosing to protect the life I've built, the one I want. I'm not going to let you drag me back into your world. Sophia's heart swelled with pride. He was standing up for himself, for them. You've come too far to let anyone undermine your progress, she added, her voice unwavering. Tyler scoffed, but there was a hint of uncertainty in his eyes. Fine. Just remember, you're missing out on the fun. When you're bored of your little love story, don't come crying to me. With that, Tyler pushed his chair back and left, leaving an uncomfortable silence in his wake. Sophia turned to Ethan, her heart pounding. Are you okay? He nodded, though his eyes were stormy. Yeah. I just didn't expect him to come back like that. It's infuriating. I'm proud of you for standing your ground, she said, reaching across the table to take his hand. It takes courage to say no to the past. Thanks. I didn't want to lose you again, Ethan replied, his gaze softening. This is my life now, and I want you to be a part of it. As they sat together, the warmth of their connection enveloped them, slowly pushing away the remnants of Tyler's negativity. Sophia felt a sense of relief wash over her, but a deeper question lingered in her mind. Do you think he'll try again? Ethan shrugged, his expression thoughtful. Maybe, but it doesn't matter. I know what I want now, and I'm not going to let anyone dictate my choices. Sophia smiled, feeling a renewed sense of hope. Good. We're building something real, and I believe in us. In that moment, she felt a shift within herself. The fear that had once held her captive was starting to dissolve, replaced by a fierce determination to embrace the future. Days turned into weeks, and with each encounter, they grew closer, facing challenges together. The bond they were rebuilding became stronger, forged in vulnerability and understanding. One evening, as they walked hand in hand under a starlit sky, Ethan suddenly stopped, turning to face her. Sophia, there's something I've been wanting to ask you. What is it? She replied, her heart racing with anticipation. He took a deep breath, his expression serious yet hopeful. I know we've been through so much, but I can't imagine my life without you. Would you be willing to take this leap with me? To really commit to this? Her breath caught in her throat, surprise flooding her senses. Are you asking me to be your girlfriend? Ethan chuckled softly, a mixture of relief and joy on his face. Yes, I am. I want to make this official. I want us to be a team through everything. Tears welled in her eyes, a mix of joy and disbelief. Yes, I want that too. I'm all in, Ethan. He grinned, pulling her close as they shared a heartfelt embrace under the stars. The weight of the past began to lift, replaced by a sense of belonging and hope. In that moment, Sophia knew they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead together. The darkness they had once known was only a part of their story, but it didn't define them. They were embarking on a new journey, one filled with love, honesty, and the promise of brighter days ahead, and asked the viewers to like the video to help romance narrator make more juicy stories like this.